context of his masculinity. Just like for a woman, her assertiveness should be in the context of her femininity. And we said, when you see that reverse, we know how repugnant it is. We've all been around a woman, particularly in this culture, type A, where she's so assertive because of the culture that she's in at work that it's a turnoff because it's not, it's not in the context of femininity. And we all have been around men who possess super soft qualities. But if it's not in the context of masculinity, you're like, ugh. You're a little too soft. Praise the Lord. It's always in the context of something else. When that's the dominant expression, it's a turnoff. So we want to be real careful about it. The men in this room will appreciate it. Women are general communicators. But I got to tell you something. If I go in the men's room and someone starts talking to me, if they got more to say than, what's up, bro? If they start trying to strike a conversation with me in the men's room, I got all sorts of antennas popping up. Praise the Lord. It's the appropriate response at the appropriate time. So Paul said, be on the alert, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong. Now, we discussed the fact that the New York Times, I believe it was the New York Times, had an article about how, this is deep, how men, this is a byproduct of this feminization, how men were, listen to this, prolonging adolescence and postponing adulthood. Prolonging adolescence and postponing adulthood. The feminized man, in the context of what we're talking about, prolongs adolescence because he doesn't have to assume responsibility. Remember, the mother impacts or influences the child predominantly emotionally, and the father impacts him philosophically. So a lot of times you'll hear people, even if the father was cold and detached, they'll commend him for his work ethic. Here are 5 marks of adulthood that should be present as you transition from adolescence. 5 marks. Number 1, you complete your education. Whatever that is for you, you complete it. Number 2, particularly in the context of men, you leave home. You leave home. No one says you got to go straight to Fifth Avenue or Beverly Hills, but you leave home. Number 3, you are financially independent of your parents. Not financially independent, but financially independent of your parents. Number 4, this is a big one, you get married. Now, when I say this, in other words, you get married as opposed to just living with women or shacking up or being a serial dater. And every guy in this room, I don't even have to go there, knows that there's a season where your immaturity allows your tolerance to be so low that as soon as someone just does anything that ruffles you the wrong way, you just move on to the next. Hopefully that occurs earlier in life rather than later. But immaturity allows you to just keep transitioning. You become a serial, and you never really know how to handle conflict. I talked about this in a male perspective, but that is what happens when all of a sudden men will hit a point. And they'll be like, you know what, I'm 35, I'm 40, I'm 45, I'm 50. And I just have a string of relationships. But I've never really invested or dug my feet into the sand. And I don't really even know if I know how to really make this work, because generally speaking, my pattern's been once it gets rough, I bail. But now I don't really want to bail anymore, but I don't know if I have the skill set that make it work. So I'm in a twixt between two, and I'm torn. I want to settle down, but I don't know if I have the skill set to make it work. So when I say you get married, that means you leave the serial dating lifestyle alone. And the fifth mark is you have children, if you're able to. But the point is, children show that you're ready for if you're mature. Children is a statement. I now am ready to handle more responsibility. I'm ready to die to myself. I'm ready to invest in the life of another. It's not about me. Obviously, not everyone has those attitudes, but in an ideal scenario, so you complete your education. You leave home. You're financially independent of your parents. In other words, you're not, every time there's a problem, you're not always running home. You don't have this little in the back of your mind that I can throw the mom card and hit mom up for 50 or 100 or 200 or electric bill or light bill or car bill or car note or student loan. Your modus operandi is not that I can hit mom up. See, because that's a feminized model. Fathers don't play that. Wow. Fathers be like, you better get another job. I don't care how overqualified you are. It's a male imprint. I played college basketball. I never once recall one of my teammates looking at me talking about, man, I'm winded, I'm tired, I want to quit. Because we look at them like, man, if you want to quit, get back on the bench then, bring someone out here who wants to keep running. You know, it's funny, I was thinking about this. I'm not proud of this, but it's the truth. And I remember I was coaching 6 to 8 year old boys, and I was talking to my wife about this, and we were talking about the difference between the feminization model and the male model, and how just different men operate. And I was coaching 6 to 8 year old boys, God is my witness, and all of a sudden they were just acting rambunctious, and they weren't paying attention, and they were doing all this, and I did this for 3 years. I love coaching boys in basketball. Finally I said, okay, you're not going to listen? Put the balls down, get on the baseline, we're going to run. And for you ladies who don't know what that means, instead of playing and practicing, I said, okay, you got all this energy. I know how to get it out of you fast. So I made them run sprints. And you know, for a second, and the parents were there and they loved me, but for a second I had this thought, do you know, in this day and age, I better watch myself, because in this day and age, someone will mess around and try to sue me or say that I'm being overbearing or this is unreal. And this is what all the great athletes grew up doing, but yet in this era. And I made them run, but I toned it down a little bit because it was so foreign. But what was my point? They needed someone who was stronger than them to lay down the law out of love.